In the social action theories, we have just concluded Max Weber and his theories. Now we'll go through G.H. Mead in this lecture. Now he's will take this in a question answer format. Which sociological school is he associated with? He is associated with Chicago School. What is his viewpoint? I mean, you have gone through the macro and micro perspectives on the society, on individuals. He is one of the person who is having a behavioristic view of the society. He rejected behavioristic view of human beings, but he says that now there are different strands of behavioristic view. I'll just explain you first that, then I'll explain you this point. Now in interpretivism, you look at the perspectives of the individuals. Okay, while we are understanding about interpretivist, the first name comes to our mind is Max Weber. After Max Weber, G.H. Mead is one of the interpretivists. He has based his thesis upon the fact that it is not that the society has the predominant constraining influence upon the individual, it is a two-way relationship between both. Human beings uh, do not act blindly to whatever external stimuli is caused to them. They will have a conscience, and they will not just go roam around and unconsciously respond to whatever norms or values or procedures are laid upon them. Therefore he rejected this viewpoint, though he is one of the interpretivist scholar, but he is not vouching for behavioristic view of human beings. Now he says that people have consciousness. It means that they have a self. And this aspect of social reality and interaction needs careful consideration by sociologists. He is saying that you cannot neglect the individual while you are analyzing a social situation or social phenomena. Society has effect upon the individual, but individuals are not lame. They have a self, they have a consciousness. So therefore his thesis can be seen as social psychological theory. Like sociology, he combines sociology and psychology together. You will just see his theories in the coming portion of the video, that how his theory is based upon how a person becomes self, becomes I, or becomes someone who contributes to the society via interactions. Now, what is his view on Durkheim, Sigmund Freud, and Marx? Now, he neither believed in normatively defined values as Emile Durkheim did, because he thought that individual is an active component of the society. And on the other end of the spectrum, this is a spectrum. On the left hand is Emile Durkheim, who says that society has social facts have overriding effect upon the individual. On the right hand of the spectrum, you have Sigmund Freud. He says that whatever decisions are being taken, whatever social phenomena is occurring, it is because of the instinct. Now he also rejects this, and also rejects the notion of material consideration of Marx. He says, now I have just showed you how on the left hand of the spectrum you will see Emile Durkheim, society has an overriding effect upon the individual. On the right hand side you will see that Sigmund Freud says that it is society is being driven by the instinct. He rejects both of these notions, and even rejects the material consideration as told by Marx. He says that human behavior is reflexive, it is reactive, and modifiable in interactional situations. Now, his famous concepts are self and identity, I and me. Now just go through this diagram. Just go through this diagram because it will be important concepts which I will develop upon in the later section. So he says that how self develops. Now in the initial phase, uh, when he's a child, what he will do is he will engage in imitation. I mean, he will see how his parents are acting to the situation, and he will just imitate that behavior. No one, he's no one, he's neither I not me. He has no ability to take on the role of other, but he just imitates it. Then is the play stage. In a play stage, he um, puts himself into different roles, like playing games, playing arts, or playing with dolls, and this is how he develops his personality. Now when he is in youth, he will engage in games. During games, he will act in a particular social situation, coordinate with people, and see where he stands in society. And then he will recognize generalized and significant others. I mean, he will see their roles. In this, he will be a fully developed individual. Now, this infograph, in this infograph, it will tell that in the self there are two components of self, I and me. I is the selfish component or the individual disposition, and me is the perception of position with respect to others. While language as a medium, me takes roles of others, and I shapes the personality. I mean, just see, when an individual is undertaking a social interaction in a social system, that is the society itself, so he will act in a certain way. Now, initial phase, that is the selfish acting of the individual, will be I. In that case, it will be his internal phenomena which will be guiding his behavior. The individual disposition or the selfishness or the self component will be more dominant here. Now, when he interacts, he will perceive the expectation of others via vocal as well as verbal and non-verbal gestures, and then he will see the behavior of others and perceive what expectations do they have, and according to it, it will modify his behavior. And when he perceives position of others vis-a-vis his own, then he develops me. Now this is a very dichotomous process, but one thing which is to be important is the language or symbols, these play a role of a medium. Now understand we'll first understand his theory of self and identity. Now in his book, which is Mind, Self and Society, 1934, this is to be remembered. Again I emphasize, Mind, Self and Society, 1934. It gives idea of symbolic interactionism. It is to be noted that the book was actually compiled by his student Herbert Bloomer. Now he says, Herbert Bloomer says that self is the foundation of symbolic interactionism. Now we'll first understand the difference between traditional social psychology. I just told you his he combined sociological approaches with psychological approaches, and then he presented his thesis. We'll see how these approaches differ. Traditional social psychology began with psychology of the individual and then explained social experiences according to it. So the center stage was given to the psychology of the individual. and all the social experiences were woven around it. I mean, they were being explained according to whatever psychology an individual had. But Mead gave priority to social world in understanding social experience. He is of the view that a thinking, self conscious individual is logically impossible without a prior social group. So, you just saw here, I told you how self develops. So, there was game, the imitation stage, then game stage, play stage, then game stage, then generalized others. So, here he is laying emphasis upon the socialization process. Now, this is in difference to the traditional social psychology, where psychology of the individual was at the center stage and all the social experiences were being explained according to it. Now, what is gesture? It is a basic mechanism in a social act and a social process. It can be physical or vocal. Humans employ significant gestures which have intrinsic thought and meaning to it. So, when can a gesture become significant? Only when it has an intrinsic thought and meaning attached by the actor. Vocal gestures, like the language, these are actually very significant for the development of human life. What is a significant symbol? It is a kind of symbol or gesture which only humans can make. Now, see, symbols alone can be made by animals too, and these are known as basic gestures. But when can a symbol be called significant symbol? When it is a kind of gesture which only humans can make. These are the gestures which elicit some response from the maker. I mean, there is a component of reaction associated with it. When any actor is undertaking those significant symbols, he will always seek a some kind of response from the object. Now, significant symbol works better in a social world than vocal gesture. Like just see angry. I mean, if you can control your anger. Significant symbols make the mind, mental process, and thinking possible. So just imagine like randomly making any signal symbol without eliciting any reaction. It is not a social interaction, a social conversation. So you will develop only after getting into the approach or getting into social interaction with other people. In conversation of gestures, only gestures are communicated and not the meaning. But in language, both gestures and meaning are communicated. So you see the difference here between the conversation of gestures and language. Language carries both gestures and meaning attached to it. So initially, I am just introducing you to the various concepts of median thesis, and after you learn it, then I will actually explain you how these act, how what is his philosophy. So what is thinking? Thinking is internalized or implicit conversation of individual with himself by means of gestures. Later, conversation between I and me. Now I told you I is the individual component, selfish component, me is what he becomes after interacting in the society by perceiving the gestures of others. So thinking is a part of the internalized or implicit conversation of the individual with himself by means of these gestures. Now, what is mind? According to Mead, mind is not a thing, it is a process. It is a process. It arises and develops within the social process and it is a part of the social process. I mean, he is saying that within a social interaction it is born, within a social setting it is born. Therefore, social process precedes the mind. I mean, mind develops as and when humans engage in social process. So, this point is to be noted. Now, we'll see the difference between mind and consciousness. Mind evolves through mind involves thought process which is oriented towards problem solving. Now, see, Real life is rife with problems, we already know that. And mind is a thing, is an object which tries its best to solve these problems. Now another concept is self. What is self? It is a peculiar ability to be both subject and object. Now in a social process, now you I is undergoing a social interaction, so he is in a way both the subject because his action is oriented towards someone, and as well as an object because whenever he is undertaking any interaction, so he is expecting a reaction uh, from the person with whom he is undertaking the interaction. Now self in a way presupposes social process. Now lower animals, he says that lower animals don't have selves, nor do human infants at birth. With the process of socialization, social activity, intimation stage, then play stage, then game stage, then adulthood, this is how self develops. And once self is developed, it can remain in human without any social contact. I mean, you don't need to have further social contact for self to prosper. Now, what is the dynamicity of self? It carries capability to read self of others. I mean, when yourself you have developed yourself fully, it can remain without any social contact, and it carries with itself the ability that you can modify yourself by reading the self of others. And how do you do that? Whenever in a social interaction you get a reaction, so in that in lieu of that you will undergo go a internal interaction between your I and me. And this way the whole process, as I told you, mind is a process, the whole process will occur in a conscious state. And this way your personality will develop. I mean, I will transform itself into me when it takes into the perspective of others with whom interaction is being occurred. So here he mentions generation of self through two stages in childhood. Now first is play stage. Now children will learn. They will take on the attitude of particular discrete others to themselves. This is a imitation stage. It is a limited self where they lack more general and organized sense of themselves, and they just depend upon whoever they see around. During the game stage, child starts taking role of generalized others. I mean, this is where he is part of a society. He is part of a small scale. You can take the example of football, where his definite personality will emerge, and he will organize his role how he perceives it. Thus the it is the reliance upon the member being a member of community is being imposed, and it is said that when a person becomes the member of the community, this is how he develops self. Now we'll also study about the concept of generalized others and significant others. Generalized others is the attitude of entire community now in which a person is living. People should be able to evaluate themselves from the point of view of generalized others and not merely from viewpoint of discrete others. Now obviously just imagine yourself living in a family. So if you want to evaluate yourself, you always look towards the opinion of the people who are around you and are not the part of your significant others, because it will not matter what your significant others think about you. It will matter like society at large or the entire community, what does it think about you. It only when we take the roles of say generalized others that we become full members of the society. So when we are able to perceive how generalized others think and act upon, then only we can become the full members of society. Abstract thinking and objectivity, we are able to reduce it down. It is also crucial like to be a member of organized group activities. Mead is inclined to give priority to pre-existing social world. He says that Social world is already existing and you are just being a part of it. We'll see the dialectic relation of self to mind. Body is not a self and becomes a self only when mind has developed. So therefore, he realized self was composed of I and me. So when can I become me? When social interaction has occurred. So during the social interaction, mind as a process plays an effective role. Reflexivity, in when you expect a reaction for whatever action you are undergoing. So in a way, the reflexivity is a mechanism for development of ourself. You, via your conscious thinking, you evolve yourself. In a way, it is also empathetic approach only, because you are unconsciously you are putting yourself into another person's places and see and you act according to how they act. So we'll understand the reflexivity approach here in this infograph. There's, this is an approach in which the sociologist tries to take an outsider's perspective on his, her, or her own work. He, she tries to look at himself, herself, and his, her research through the eyes of others, particularly those who are subjects of the research. One of the practical aspects of reflexivity is the importance of carefully documenting whatever one is doing, because you will be able to look for any flaws in the process or in the journal making at the later stage and you can rectify it. This ensures that others can trace the steps, and moreover, for the secondary research, based on whatever you have generated is primary research. So, if anybody is undertaking secondary research, he can also go through that material and see for flaws or where you were not able to remain dissociated from whatever you were observing. He can point out those moments. This ensures that others can trace the steps we have taken to arrive at a particular conclusion and see for themselves if we are right. It also helps us to check and recheck our own thinking or line of argument. However, self-reflexive the sociologist tries to be, there is always a possibility of unconscious bias. See, here as human element is involved, there is a definitive attitude, behavioral patterns associated with each sociological thinker. So you cannot claim that you can be completely unconscious. You can you have rejected all the bias from your result. You cannot say that for sure. To deal with this possibility, sociologists explicitly mention those features of their own social background. So you might have seen in the foreword of any book that sociologist tells his background, or the way I was teaching you, I was initially telling you the background of a person in which he developed his work. So it, in a way, it tells us about if we have a preconceived notion or bias on the topic which is being researched. And also readers are more aware about whether any about which direction they need to like rely upon, and which they can expect subjectivity in which topics. Now this is just like whatever I have told you. So just see, and we'll take a break for 1 minute here, but you just see it. So I is creative, responsive, and active component of our personality, while me is socially confirming. I mean, we become me when we are in the society. So I and me interaction between I and me and the generalized others forms the self. Generalized others are expectation of society as a whole. Now, self is equal to I and me. I already told you. So this is the explanation of I. I is spontaneous, unpredictable, and creative. Acts in extreme situations of rage to excitement. The me is a part of self which is created to socialization, predictability, and conformity. So these two are the components, and these constantly interact in social situation. Now you understand why consciousness is important, why mind is important, why reflexivity is important. These are the reasons why these concepts are important. So already I have explained you a lot about I and B, but still I'll explain it here. Mead takes evolutionary view of self through game play and game stages. We just saw that initially it was imitation stage, then came play stage, and then came game stage. Now self is essentially a social process going on between I and me. We just saw in the infograph. I and me are processes within the larger process of the self, and like the self, they are not things. Now, Self is not a thing, mind is not a thing, it is a process. So this is why I and me are also a process. I is the immediate response, which is it is incalculable, unpredictable, and creative aspect of self. You even don't know how you will react. We are never totally aware of I, and in a way, it also surprises us. Mead laid stress on I for four reasons. First of all, it gives now generalized others the concept of me. It creates a sense of conformity and uniformity in the society. But when I talk about the concept of I, it gives dynamicity to individual. And otherwise, you might all turn conformist to the society. Our most important values, like they are these are the individuals who are highly creative. They create their own new goals, their own new means. It permits us to have a definitive personality. I mean, people will distinguish you from others due to the component of I. And if you see, I plays more important role. I play a more important role in modern societies where division of labor is too much. These are the complex societies. But while in primitive societies, the component of me was more important. Now, if you go through the great historical personalities like Mahatma Gandhi, the component of I was dominating, because otherwise they would have accepted the norms of the whatever British government was giving to the society. Specific circumstances and experiences, these will be like unique to each individual's life. So the unique mix of I or me forms an individual, and me is the adoption of generalized other, while and Mead calls it a social self. People are conscious of me in contrast to I. Me is conventional habitual individual. Conformists are dominated by the component of me. I already told you what is me. Through me, society dominates the individual. Me allows individual to live comfortably in social world, while I makes social changes possible. What is There are two components, two points you need to know. One is self awareness and other is self consciousness. Self awareness is learning how to distinguish between I and me. So when you know how you can distinguish between I and me, you have become self aware. Now, if you begin to see how others sees you, you are self conscious. These are the part of your, actually your part of important parts of your personality system. And now we'll go through the criticism of Mead. So here too much emphasis is being laid on the social interactions, but uh, in a way biological genetic influence is being disregarded. Roper says interactionism focusing on individual activities in a vacuum. Now individual, there are a lot of other factors also during the social interaction. So these have been in a way neglected. Then Patrick Burt says Mead saw social life as two concerns. So now, what if I don't want to get into the interaction, or what if I don't want to be part of any society? I just want my own life. Like in the time of coronavirus, when everybody is living it like that. But in conclusion, you can write name of John Dewey. John Dewey says that Mead was a seminal mind of very first order. Conclusion was John Dewey said Mead was a seminal mind of very first order. So yes, like that you can conclude. Now in the next lecture I will go through both of these together. The one will be the Erwin Goffman theory and another will be the labeling theory.